Hey guys, this is the Tuninator, and this is a video guide to the adventure map of Heroes of Might and Magic 3. So before I start on the map itself, I just want to explain what the sidebars you see here are. The bar along the bottom will display all your resources, the amount that's in your treasury at the moment. Then this bar over here is all your different heroes. You can kind of just click through it to access all of them, see where they are. And then this bar will have all your towns. You can have up to 8 heroes out on the map at once, and as many towns as you want, I believe. So anyways, the map itself. The adventure map is where all the movement and resource gathering and stuff like that takes place in Heroes. It's really the heart of the game in many ways. It's that very much a lot of the strategy just comes from how you play the adventure map. So, as such, it's very important for anyone starting the game to learn the map. So I'm just going to kind of explain some basic stuff you'll find on the map, what everything does, how you move around the map, and stuff like that. So the first thing to know is there's 2 layers to the map. There's the upper layer right here, and then there's the underground, which essentially serves as a map under the map. Functions in the same way, except they kind of both exist at the same time. So I'll explain how they get down there later. But first things first, the towns, what you see right here, they're kind of the focus of, or each player, everyone has a town, and it's where you build your military and stuff like that. So you can find towns on the map very easily. They have these big dots on the mini-map. They'll look like, big castles or, big village halls coming out of the landscape. And they all have a little gate with flags in front of them to denote what faction they belong to. For example, I'm the red player, so my town right here has 2 red flags. If we go down here to this town, it's got the gray flags, which means it's neutral. And if we go underground and we look at this town, it's got blue flags because it belongs to the blue player. So the map it makes towns very easy to see, and it denotes very clearly who owns them, which is very important because they're a very big part of the game. And there's 9 different towns, and I'll kind of go into all of them in more depth at a later date. So the second important thing that the map displays is heroes. You can see one of them here, that's an enemy hero. And then these are my 3 heroes right here. So the heroes are all represented on the map by a person, a man or a woman, or a lizard man or whatever, on a horse, with a flag that corresponds to the color of the player. So in this case, my hero's flying a red flag, that hero's flying a blue flag. You can see them on the mini-map. And heroes are basically the way you interact with the map. The heroes move around, they pick up stuff, they fight battles, things like that. So to move a hero on the map, you just click. They'll move that many squares. The square is determined by your creature speed and the terrain you're on. And there's a bunch of different types of terrain. I'll explain more about those in a sec. And to interact with stuff, you click on it when you see the rearing horse, and then you click on it again. You'll move to it, and you'll pick it up. So you see it disappears off the map, and you get in your inventory. Basically, the 2 ways you can interact with things are either the rearing horse, which means you can go to it without a fight if it's kind of just like a something that'll give you a bonus, or things you can pick up, stuff like that. Or you'll see a sword, which means generally you're either attacking a town or you're attacking a stack of wandering monsters, neutral monsters sitting around the map. So that's the basics for heroes. You just kind of move around. Again, rearing horse, that's how you get everything. You claim towns, mines, everything like that is with your heroes. And I'm going to elaborate on heroes in another video at a later date. So the next thing you'll probably notice scattered all around the map is these kind of piles of rocks and gold, gems and stuff like that. And those are resources. So as you can see at the bottom of the screen, there are 7 resources. There's gold from right to left, gold, gems, crystal, sulfur, ore, mercury, and wood. And they're all needed for different things. Each faction has an emphasis on one or the other, although all factions tend to need a fair amount of wood and ore. And there's 3 main ways to get resources off of the adventure map. The first is to pick up piles like you see here. You kind of click on them, and then you see it tells you how much you picked up. Again, so we get 5 ore, and we got 600 gold from there. So that's the first way in early game. That's often how you be keeping yourself going, is by picking up resource piles. Because usually when you start your town, they'll kind of be scattered all around here. And then there are also mines. Mines are kind of the way you're going to keep up your resource production in the long term. So you see this right here, it says it's an ore pit. That is the mine for the ore resource, and each resource has a mine that corresponds to that resource. The ones for ore and wood will give 2 units a day. The one for gold gives 1,000 a day because you have a lot more gold than anything else, and the ones for all the other resources give 1 a day. And the way you get the mines is just by same way you interact with anything else. You would do the rearing horse, and you would move to it, and then once you've kind of flagged it, it becomes yours, and it'll start producing a certain amount of resources a day for you. It's important to know that you can steal the mines of other people, so keep that in mind. And I'll show you all the different types. So that's an ore pit. That's a sawmill, it's for wood. Gem pond for gems, alchemist lab for mercury, sulfur dunes for sulfur, and crystal cavern for crystal. And then there's one more way to get resources, if not from it's kind of piles laying out on the map, or from a mine, and that is through kind of creature stockpiles. And they're these structures. Here's an example of 2 of them: Cyclops stockpile and Imp Catch. They're structures that you can visit that have, if you visit it, you can choose to kind of go inside and fight the guards, and you'll enter into a fight on the battle map, and if you succeed, you'll be rewarded with resources, which can be sometimes, I think, artifacts from some as well, but generally you get a fair amount of resources. So that's the third way to do it. I think there's also crypts, which are zombies, or undead rather, and then Medusa stores. So those are 4 of the more common ones you'll find. So those are the main ways to get resources from the adventure map. Again, you can see little red one flying my flag. That means they're giving me resources each day. You got the piles, and then you have things like stockpiles. And then another thing you probably notice lying around the map is these little things, like the medallion here, that little sword there, that they don't look like resources, but they're still lying out in the open. Those are called artifacts. There's things that your heroes can pick up and equip. It's kind of the RPG side of the game. That'll boost their stats, give them bonuses, things like that. So you can see a bunch lying around. Usually they'll be everywhere, usually guarded by creatures. You get this bag of gold, this thing right here, again, guarded by creatures. I think there's some, spell scroll, that's another artifact. That cape, another artifact, all generally guarded by creatures. Give your heroes a bonus. You just pick them up, and then you can equip them on the hero screen, which again I'll talk about in a later video. And these boxes right here are not artifacts. They'll have stuff inside them, anything from experience to monsters. They're called Pandora's Box, so they're a whole lot of fun, but they're a whole different thing. So the other really important kind of pervasive thing you'll see on the map is all of these creatures. You see, you have like these basilisks and big hydra thing, golems, little fairy people, stuff like that. Those all represent a kind of monster in the game, usually from a town, but there's also neutral ones that are unaffiliated. They're there just to be on the map. And basically, wherever you are with those, if you click on one, you see you get the sword icon. You can right-click on them on anything in the game when you get information about it. I'll tell you roughly how many there are. And if you move to within 1 square of them, like right there, it'll initiate a battle. Then you go to the battle map, you fight them, and if you kill them, they disappear from the map. So that's the basics of kind of neutral creatures on the map. But the map also gives you ways to get creatures in addition to the ones you can get from your town. And there's 2 main ways to do that. There's neutral creature dwellings, which resemble this. This is a troll bridge. It's for a neutral creature. You can see it's kind of a little structure with a flag on it. It's very similar to the mines. And what you do is, if you go here, you get rid of these guards right here. You'd fight them, get them out of the way, and then you'd be able to move on to the dwelling, and you can capture it, and then every week it'll refresh itself with creatures you can come and get. And if it's a dwelling for a creature type that you happen to have in one of your towns, that the amount per week you get in the town will be boosted by 1 as well. So that's especially significant for more powerful creatures if you get dwellings for them, because it really increases the amount you can get overall. And then the other way to get creatures is there's kind of like creature stockpiles, which are similar to the resource ones. This one right here, a dragonfly hive, and you go there, and just like the resource ones, you fight people or creatures in there. But once you once you beat them, instead of getting resources, you get creatures. The dragonfly hive will give wyverns, which are kind of the big lizardy flying thing. And then this is a Griffin Conservatory. It's the other main one of that type, and it'll give angels if you beat that. So that's the other main way you're going to get creatures off of the adventure map, besides from dwellings. And then about the terrain in general. the terrain, you can see just from being here, looking around here, there's many different types. Each town has a tile set associated with it. Some tile sets have more than one town. For example, Grass here has both Rampart, which is the Elven town, and you see right here, and Castle, which is the human town. But I believe there's Dirt, which you see a little of right there. There's Rough, which you can see a little of right here. Those mountains, those are Rough Mountains. Rough is the Barbarian town. Dirt is the Necromancer's. Swamp, which is Fortress, my favorite town. Lava, which is for Inferno, the Demon town. Snow, which is for Tower, the Wizard town. And then I think Grass is actually Conflux, Rampart, and Castle. Rampart's like the Nature and Elves, so they'd be more so forest, but there's no forest tile set. Conflux is an elemental town that's added in the expansion. They don't really have a home tile set in particular, so I think they have Grass. And then the human town is also Grass. And I think, oh yeah, and then there's Underground, which I talked about earlier, and Underground is the home of the Dungeon Town. So a bit more about the Underground. The Underground is accessible in one of two ways. Either you go through a subterranean gate, which is this big weird head-looking thing right here, or use a monolith. And one more thing about monoliths. Monoliths are teleporters. They're either one-way or two-way. No matter which type they are, they take you to another monolith at some point. It's basically a portal. If it's a two-way, you can go back through it. If it's a one-way, you will not be able to. It's also important to note that in any location you go to, especially monoliths, if you're standing on something, like so you go through monolith and you teleport out the other side and there's a creature stack right there, so you can't move off without fighting them, hitting space will return you, it'll basically take an action on whatever you're on at the moment. So if you're at a town, you can revisit by hitting space. If you're on a monolith, you can teleport back to the other side by hitting space. But anyways, the subterranean gates, you can see right here, if you go through these, like so, it takes you to the underground map. You can see this, it's in the same place on both maps. And the underground map functions, like I mentioned, essentially like the above ground map, except it's just kind of under it, so it adds a bit of tactical and rather strategic depth to the game, as they both exist at the same time. So, for example, if, say, my opponent's at this town, and I have an army in here so he can't get to my main town, but if he can find some way to get into the underground and to, like, come up through here, he can kind of pop out behind my armies and go straight for the main town. And obviously that's a very, kind of simplified and not that great an example, but that kind of gives you an idea of just how it adds more, flexibility. You can kind of just go around underground. It adds more depth to the game, and I think it's a pretty cool mechanic, because not a lot of games have something like that in a turn-based context. So you can see there's more towns down here. It's basically just more of the same, and more artifacts, creatures, stuff like that. So the last thing I'm going to talk about, that's something that you're going to run into all the time on the adventure map, is obelisks and stat boosters. So the stat boosters are things that will enhance your hero in some way. Again, that's part of the RPG aspect of the game. They typically take the form of some kind of structure. There's 4 that will enhance each of your main stats by 1 for free, and those are respectively the Star Axis right here for power, the Marletto Tower for defense, the Garden of Revelation for knowledge, and the Mercenary Camp for attack. So those will all give you the upgrades for free, but there's also a fair amount, such as the School of Magic right here, that will give you a bonus for a small fee as well. In this case, I believe 1,000 gold. There's, big arena, coliseum things that'll give you bigger bonuses, stuff like this. There's a bunch of different stat boosters, but again, the 4 basic ones are that Star Axis, the Marletto Tower, which is kind of hidden up here, the Garden of Revelation right there, and the Mercenary Camp. There are also Scholars, which are these guys right here. They look a little bit like that creature stack, but don't be fooled. And they will either give you a stat bonus or some kind of skill, so be careful when you're using these guys, because they can give you a crappy skill that you don't want to have. This is also notable in a Library of Enlightenment. If you're, I believe, level 10 when you visit there, or at a certain high level you guys like leadership and diplomacy, I believe, you can get into it earlier. It'll give you +4 to all primary stats. So those are the main kind of stat boosters you're going to encounter on the map. And the final thing I want to talk about really quick is the obelisks. You'll see these things, these big kind of Washington Monument, tower-looking thingies all around, and as the name suggests, they are obelisks.